Hey there, welcome back to part 8 of our tutorial series. And today we're going to work on trim and what you can do to get some little added elements to make your buildings and things not looking so boring. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and hide the floor so that we can look and set it to straight down and orthographic so that we're looking straight down, and that's the 7 key and the 5 key to move from orthographic to perspective. Let me go ahead and start my does it look like I have it up? Let's go ahead. And for those of you who didn't know, this is kind of a good thing. In your add-ons, and gotta find where it is, there is an add-on if you are doing recording at all to show the mouse button clicks. And I just need to find it because I don't remember what it's called. So I'm just looking through here to the add-ons, which is under your user preferences, and should be let's just see if we can search for mouse and see what comes up. Nope. How about did they move it on me? Sorry about that. I wonder where. Screencast keys, that's what it's called. So we'll put that one up, and you can save as the default, but as long as it will stay up. And where did they go? Start display and mouse icon and group them. And now we should, yes, now we can see them go. Alright, so we're in our top-down view, and what we can use is we can go ahead and use a curve to define our trim. Now, the good thing about this is with a curve, so we'll go ahead and add mesh, add a curve, and add a Bezier curve. Okay, so what we can do is define this, but if we go over to the curve section and notice the preview and the render output, what this does, if we look at it, this comes out to each one of these arrow points when we move this into an actual mesh instead of a curve is this preview. So we can go all the way down to 1 and have no movement in between them, which is not very useful. But by using these low levels, we can get a very simple mesh to do what we want to do. So let's make we're going to select our curve, and we're just going to scale it down, not that much, down to about, let's try here. You can find throughout woodworking sites and things to find the patterns that you want to make. We're going to make something very simple, and I'm going to use my snap to grid here and go into tab mode, grab this edge, and we will just move it to, say, let's go right on there, scroll in a little bit and move it and see if we can get it to snap, and use the shift key to make smaller snap keys. We'll just snap it right there. And this one, let's just leave, and we'll extrude it and snap it. And again, we have to, depending on where it starts, depend on where it is. And then we can go over here and toggle cyclic, and that will finish it out. Alright, now, in working with the curves, let's go ahead and select all of our curves by the center point so that we have the actual curve. And what we're going to do is set these to a vector, which makes them nice and straight like that. Now, why is this one not doing that? Did it miss that one? There we go. Now we have a nice, straight, curved triangle. But what we want to do is actually move these to get. So why is that? We need to snap that in. Get it to snap. And you want to have the base at the origin. I'm not sure why that's not snapping. There we go. We'll snap it right there. And that's where you want your scale and everything to come from at the origin. So we'll go ahead and select both of these, and we'll just make a nice little curve like this. And it looks like we'll have to move up a 1 or 2 maybe. And see how that looks. And what I'm going to do just to make this work a little better is grab their 2 points and hit subdivide, which will give us a point in the center. And now you can see we can make something much better looking by adding a point. Come on. Okay, and now let's see if we can move our preview down, and we can get something fairly nice with a nice low preview. I think 3 is going to be too low, but 4. So each one of these becomes a point. So we'll tab out of here, and it's a little rough, but I think it'll do the job that we're looking for. And we'll go ahead and give this Bezier curve, which you can use Control and click on it, and we were going to call this trim underscore profile. Okay, and then what we do is grab another, oops, we're up there, so let's hit the right keys here, and we're going to grab another Bezier curve. And this one, what we're going to do is go ahead and move it up, and we're going to snap it, so we want to put it by the door. And again, we're going to use the snapping, but not increments. We're going to use the snap to vertex. Now this can get quite frustrating sometimes, depending on what you're looking at and how to, and just getting it to match the points. But in the long run, I think this is worth it. So what we want to do is, first of all, we're going to select all of our points, and we're going to make them vectors, because, and this one, we don't need anything but 1, because these are all right angles. So we can move our preview all the way down to 1, and render to 1, and we'll take our point and G, and we're going to try to get it to snap to a point. And then you have to check, and this is what usually happens to me, is it snapped to a point, but it's snapped to the point up here. So we just drag it down and get it to snap again. And sometimes you really have to play with it to get it in there to snap it. But we want this on the inside, and we get it to snap. And you just have to play around with it, but eventually it will grab the snap, and make sure that that is on to snap to. And sometimes you have to get there we go, snap. So we have our point there, and we're going to grab this point, try to get it to snap up there. And move in and out to get it to snap. And as you can see, we're actually quite far away from, got that one, got it. Okay, and then extrude straight across, and these are often easier, and extrude down. Okay, so now what this is the outline that we're going to attach the profile to. So we're going to move this over to full so that we make sure that it will fill everything. And we're going to bevel this with the trim profile. And bam, there we have it. Except, if we take a look at this, it's not in the right direction. So there's a couple of things we can do. First thing that we can do is grab our, make sure we have our Bezier curve, and see if we can, if the switching the direction, that helps some. It's still not going in the right direction though. So what we need to do then is tab out of edit mode, and go down into our profile here. And you need to do this in edit mode to make this work. So select everything and rotate around the 3D cursor, which should be right at your origin point. And we're going to rotate. Oops, I didn't get everything. I got everything. And rotate, and let's do it this way. We're going to escape out, rotate on the Z axis, so hit Z and not 60. So undo that. Escape. Rotate, Z 90. And let's go out and see how our trim looks. We can find it. Okay, let's tab out of that and grab our Bezier curve and go back in, select everything, and try switching the direction again and see. Okay, now as you can see, we have what we were looking for. A nice beveled object coming out, going in, and it is done. Okay, now if you're worried about polygons, this isn't too bad, because if we look at this, so now we're going to take this, tab out of edit mode, select our curve, and under object, convert mesh from curve. And now, whoops, grab the right one. If we look at this, there are points along here to get the curve correct, okay? But there's only one set of points there, one set of points there, one set of points there. And then you have this angle at the bottom. So what we're going to do, tab back out, grab all of our walls, yes. So this will be a little interesting to work with. Let's go to 1. And now when we grab this, what we can do is use B to select our whole thing, scale Z0 flat, right to where you want it, and move it wherever you need it to be to finish the scale Z0. And you now have a mesh component. And you could use this however you want to use it, as something coming out. If you don't like the shape that it's in right now, you just adjust the profile, but you need to do that in curve mode. Okay, you have to have the profile the way you want it. Once you've transferred this into a mesh, the curve no longer has any effect on it. But you could do whatever you want to make that work the way you want it to work. And I wouldn't even worry about if you're going to transfer it into Unity or another game. Don't even worry about the mesh, because you have the mesh collider that we built earlier on the wall, and the difference in your collider should make no difference, and there's no reason to even have a collider on here, because it's not something that your character is really going to run into. And then one other thing that you can do is, I said before that what I was doing is taking my walls here, and we're going to tab into, don't need to, and we're going to Shift D to duplicate our walls, and we're going to scale, so S and then Alt Z means it should scale on everything but the Z axis, and we'll put that in there. So now I have my two walls, my inside wall and my outside wall that we discussed before, how we were going to do that. Okay, and now the scaling kind of screwed up the, it's probably best just to actually move the vertices in to get it done. But just to show what we can do here now, and if we move GY, we can move this out here. Then we can take something and control, whoops, Shift A, a mesh cube, and grab our cube and move it over. And what we can do is, however you want to do that, just scale along the Z axis to make it nice and small. And I should remove this back to the active element. Scale X, and you can use your precise numbers by figuring out what 3 inches on your scale is, and just set this right in here. And if you put all of this together, scale Y, so we get it nice and small. This, again, you can make your trim and cover up this hole between your two walls, and by putting together the trim and these base blocks. And if you go look at a door, that's all that's there. There is a tiny bit of trim that would run down that holds the door on the non-hinge side, sometimes on the hinge side, but in most cases nobody will notice that that's not there, but you can put it in if you want. And again, with a piece like that, you're only going to have the amount of vertices for the corners. So if you put it all the way around, you only have 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of vertices multiplied by however many points you needed to make your trim look the way you want it to make. And by using those low ones, you can get something that looks quite nice inside the game and build this in. And again, none of this needs to have colliders on it, because this would be so small like this that it wouldn't even be noticed. And just set that into place. And I'm not doing this very well, but you can also even cover up, should you leave the wall that way, you can cover up that mistake or that change in the wall size for the door, and it will still look just fine by using these extra trim pieces to put them in, if that's making sense. And get a nice looking door and trim pieces put in, and just match them all up, and you can use the snapping to get that done. And I did this quick, so it's not very well, but I think you get the I wonder why it's giving me this. There it goes. And get a nice looking door inside and out. You can have trim on the same. Put trim along the top of your walls. And again, this is great for covering up places, not only to look realistic, but great for covering up like where your ceiling and your wall meet. That's why they do it in real houses, is to cover up that seam that between where the two different pieces of construction are. Along your floors, if you want to put a chair rail, depending on what you're building, this works great for doing that. And anytime, I think by using this, you can often end up with a simpler mesh than if you tried to mold all of this into the wall and all of the cuts that you would have to put in and do that, and then just ignore the collision and let the wall. Even if you were doing a sink or a anything like that, you could put this edge on the curve on the edge of the actual sink, and then only worry about the collision on the square part as you're building the say a table or something like that. It's just another option on how to do it, and you'd have to play around to see which one actually makes more sense. But we really don't get, let's see if we tab in here and select all. So this whole thing is only 40 vertices, and that's not bad. That's going to do just fine for the, whoops, yes, 40 vertices for that entire